Marriage/engagement photographers/videographers of Reddit, have you developed a sixth sense for which marriages will flourish and which will not? What are the green and red flags? There is one particular venue that has a 100% divorce rate with our clients. It's a state park, which I've dubbed Omen Meadows. Please, it's killing me. What's the official name of Omen Meadows? Failed Marriage Start Park. Fascinating. Maybe I should stay clear of the outdoorsy types after all. We're about to book another wedding there for early next year, so we'll see if it holds true. Photographer here. To me the biggest sign is the cake cutting. Some people like to smear the cake everywhere as a joke, some people don't. Usually the couple is in sync about this, they know what the other would like, and they don't smush cake on the other's face if they wouldn't want that. Sometimes, one of them, usually the groom, will force cake all over the other's face and embarrass and upset them. I've seen this happen a handful of times, and all of those relationships that I have kept up with have ended in a divorce. My first wife had 2 kids when we got married. We fed each other the cake nicely, then turned around and smushed it in the kids' faces. Outstanding move. Happy cake day. Smushes cake in your face. Wedding videographer here. I try to get to know both people beforehand, so I can work in their hobbies/unique traits into my product. A big red flag is when one person is clearly trying to change the other. I had one dude who loved poker, craft beer, cigars, hanging with his rowdy friends, video games, etc. I planned a cool shoot where I had all his friends in an old west saloon, and he sees his bride-to-be, etc. But she steps in and declares, oh, he won't be doing any of those things anymore. Poor bastard just sat there in silence, as I awkwardly had to plan them shopping for a Yorkie puppy instead. Halfway through post-production after the wedding, he called and said he was getting an annulment. I wanted to say, could have told you so, but I try to stay neutral. Green flags are just the opposite, embracing the other person's habits, hobbies, and interests, basically not being a controlling freak show. Red flag, the groom winking at both my assistant and I during the ceremony. He was not winking in the sense that he might have been tearing up or had something in his eye. But there was a part in the ceremony where the couple sat down and he would lean his head back in his chair, look past his soon-to-be wife, and wink at me. Or look over his left shoulder and wink at my assistant. It was bizarre. That's just Morse code for I'm a douchebag. Photographer here. You can tell somewhat based on how the couple treats each other on the wedding day. If they are respectful towards one another, and toward me, during one day full of stress, then I think that's a good indicator of being able to deal with other problems that may arise during a marriage. Best advice I got about marriage was from my psychology professor. He told us never to marry someone until you've seen how they react when something goes wrong. I think for some couples that may turn out to be the day of the wedding. You never really know someone until you put them in front of a slow computer. Oh god. I might be a terrible person thing. My dad is generally a pretty chill guy. Except for when you put him behind a slow computer, or a computer with a poor internet connection. I've never heard a mouse slam down on a table so many times before. No one would marry me after that, especially if I'm in a rush and need to print something. Cake artist here. I had a couple come in for a tasting. Appointment was for 7 PM, but he was late. First half hour was just her. She told me they met at a stable where they both kept their horses. Those horses were going to be featured at the wedding, as the bride and groom would ride them to the site, a beautiful farm venue. She described in detail her self-designed medieval gown. Flower wreath in her hair, embroidered shoes like some from a museum. Sounded lovely. She wanted a cake like a castle, which was a specialty of mine. The whole wedding would be over the top, but not in a cringy way. Then he arrives, barely says hi to her, sits down and starts telling me about his wedding. He'll ride in dressed as a riverboat gambler with a frock coat, brocade vest, string tie, big hat, gold pocket watch, and sterling silver spurs. He's fine with the castle cake, but wants to incorporate the watch and a pair of mother of pearl handled pistols. Picture given. I had already decided that I was not going to work with them. No way could I come up with a cake that would work for them. But they were there, so I brought out the samples. For the next hour they carried on 2 entirely separate monologues. They didn't address each other, or me, and they didn't listen to each other, or me. I made no attempt to balk them that night, and when they called later in the week, I told them their date had been taken. They were living in 2 incompatible and entirely self-contained fantasies. I doubt they even made it to the wedding day. This is so interesting. I'd love to see what these people are like day to day. I'm envisioning a ceremony that is split right down the middle of the aisle, half beautiful and ethereal, half rowdy and gunslingery. It's amazing. Sounds like my D&D group. You sound judgmental. My dad was a riverboat medieval gambling king, and I take serious offense. How's his marriage though? Better than the first 4. Ex-wedding photographer. Typically, I saw red flags when the bride or groom is super quiet. I mean silent and just watching. One instance was a groom who barely said 10 words to anyone during the ceremony or reception afterwards. The bride and her mother were extremely loud and excited the entire time. The bride needed everything to be perfect. I dropped off the photo bundle with them 2 weeks later, and he was still quiet. She however complained about all of the pictures, because the groom wasn't smiling enough. She wanted a discount because I couldn't make him look happy enough. They got divorced about a year later. I know because I did his engagement photos with his new fiancée, about 4 years after his first wedding. His engagement photos showed him much happier. Edit. I stopped doing weddings but I do some portraits and mostly commercial and project work. He called me for a wedding quote, but I had stopped doing them at that point. I do still do portraits, so I offered to do engagement photos for him that he was happy with. Well, at least he liked your work enough to hire you a second time despite him being miserable the first time. So you must be a damn good photographer. Who do you like for the photographer, honey? Well, the only aspect of my previous marriage that didn't make me feel like dying was the photographer, who didn't force me to smile like a monkey. Her. Wedding videographer here. I don't usually follow the marriage all that closely after the video is delivered, but usually you have a feeling as a neutral third party about whether it's going to last or not. While I agree with most of the stuff mentioned here, I've found that the microcosm of how the couple feels about each other usually comes out during the cake cutting. If they're drinking, then they've usually had one few by that point and it's a moment when everyone is watching you do something potentially awkward with your new-so. When I see a new bride or groom aggressively smush cake into the other's face, I usually feel like that's a strong sign of an unbalanced relationship. Sometimes, they're both having fun with it and you can tell it's cool, but most of the time you can tell that the person with cake on their face is either shocked or angry about it. Again, I don't have hard data to track results, but that's the thing that usually informs my opinion about how it's going to work out. It blows my mind when couples do this. A bit of frosting on the tip of your nose, okay, but I've seen the groom smash it so hard, her makeup had to be redone and her dress fixed in the bathroom because cake went down her cleavage. Why would you do that to someone, especially someone you like? My mom shares your anecdotal position. Almost every couple she's seen smash cake has divorced. My husband wanted to do a cake smash but knew I didn't, so he smashed the cake into his own face, lol. I respect his ability to compromise, face with tears of joy. I'd say marry him, but you already did. Ex-wedding photographer here. There were only a couple situations where I had doubts about the couple's future, and one where I was certain. I met the couple in a cafe to discuss their ideas and my services. The girl was very happy, she was very emotional and interested. The guy, however, was rolling his eyes and grunting at everything, and I stopped trying to get him involved in the conversation after he ignored me twice. It made the girl very uncomfortable and she was apologetic of his behavior. I don't know what happened to them, as they apparently chose to reschedule their wedding and didn't hire me in the end. I declined shooting a wedding when the person who was going to hire me was the groom's mom. When I asked her to arrange a meeting with the couple, She said that they didn't want a wedding, meaning they wanted to elope, and it was her initiative to celebrate it. I tried to play "I want to hear bride's ideas" card, but she told me the bride has no ideas, she obeys the groom, and the groom obeys mom. So I'll only talk to the mom, so I declined. I hope the girl is fine. No one deserves a controlling mother-in-law. Finally, I was a guest and a photographer at my friend's wedding. The bridesmaid was wearing a short white dress, and she was chirping about her side hustle modeling for photos and catalogs, how her boyfriend saw her in so many wedding dresses. He won't be surprised when she wears one to the wedding, and how she caught 8 bouquets already. This will be her 9th. She talked a lot about wedding planning and stuff, but apparently there hadn't even been a formal proposal, and her boyfriend, who was a guest as well, looked very annoyed and clearly wished he was somewhere else. Anyway, the bridesmaid started bugging me for photos of her and her boyfriend 1 week after the wedding. I told her several times that when I start editing the photos, I will do hers first. And by the time I sent her the photos, they were already broken up. She started dating someone else 1 month later and got married the next year. Looks like she cared more about the idea of marriage. The man is just a placeholder for a fantasy. Big red flag. Wedding planner here. Red flags. Nerves are normal, but when one of the pair start doubting whether they should go through with it way before the day, you know something isn't quite right. Green flags. They make decisions together and have each other's backs, especially when family can be pressuring. We had a stressful, let's put it that way, wedding due to my parents and sister. The biggest thing I took away from that was feeling like it was me and my husband as a secret team managing all the outrageous familial and manipulative bullshit around us. I felt like we were partners in a spy novel or something. He was the only person I could fully rely on, and we'd sneak off to the pub to decompress and plan our strategies almost every afternoon. It only strengthened my desire to marry him. I felt like we were 100% secret, only sane people here. Team us. Former wedding videographer. When doing the letter read, the bride at the end said, which I quote, "Well, that was ducking stupid." I cut that part out in the final video. Edit. Let me clarify what I am referring to. The couple reads their letter from their partner prior to the wedding. She just got done reading the groom's letter and was talking about what he wrote. To be fair, what he wrote was not exactly Shakespeare, but still a harsh response. She said it at the end of the groom's letter. Yeah, we do letter reads, bride writes one for groom and vice versa. Tends to add good emotion, since 9 times out of 10 the speeches suck.